The mountain ridge was cold and sharp like a blade of stone cutting through the sky. Snow lay in scattered patches across the rocks, and the wind howled through narrow passes like a warning voice that never stopped. SEAL Team 7 crouched low. Behind jagged boulders, their uniforms coated with dust and smoke, their rifles clutched tight though nearly empty of rounds. The leader checked the magazines again and again, and every time he counted fewer bullets until he knew the truth: only 4. Bullets remained among the entire squad. Enemy fighters were closing in from 3 sides, moving like shadows. Along the rocks, their weapons flashing in the distance as bursts of fire lit the ridge and short, violent sparks the SEALs had tried to call for backup, their radios crackling with static, but no answer came, only silence and broken noise. The men looked at each other, their eyes wide with the weight of what was coming, and their leader whispered, "We will fight until the last round. We will not surrender." Each man nodded, though inside they felt the sinking truth. They were surrounded, they were cut off, they had no hope of surviving. Minutes stretched into long hours, or so it felt, as the enemy pushed closer step by step, careful but confident. Knowing the Americans were trapped, one fighter with a heavy chest plate and a curved blade strapped to his side charged forward, leading the attack, his voice echoing over the ridge with fierce shouts. The SEALs raised their rifles, prepared to spend their last bullets at close range, their hearts pounding so loud it felt like thunder in their chests. Then it happened without warning. The charging enemy dropped to the ground, his chest torn by a single strike, so precise it was like the finger of fate had touched him. The SEALs froze. None of them had fired. Not one of them had pulled the trigger. The leader scanned the ridge, his mind racing. Where did the shot come from? There was no flash, no signal, no trace of a sniper. The silence grew heavier. The team whispered questions under their breath. Did anyone see that? Who fired that shot? Are we dreaming? But no answer came, only the wind whistling and the echo of the fallen man's body hitting stone. Just as confusion reached its peak, a voice broke through the radio, a woman's voice, soft, calm, and steady like morning mist. "The wind has shifted," she said. "Clear shooting conditions are available." The team looked at one another in disbelief. Who was she? How did she know their situation? How did she cut through the enemy's jamming when their own radios were useless? No one replied to the voice, and yet every man understood they were not alone on this ridge. Someone unseen was watching over them. For a few seconds, hope flickered inside their hearts like a spark in the darkness. If someone could take out the enemy leader with a single invisible shot, maybe they had a chance. Maybe fate had not abandoned them after all. But even with this mystery ally, they still faced overwhelming odds. Their ammo was still nearly gone. Their position still surrounded, the enemy still determined to crush them. Leader tightened his grip on his rifle and whispered, "Hold your ground. Do not waste a bullet until they are on us." The men shifted in their positions, pressing their backs to stone, drawing in deep breaths, waiting for the next move. In the valley below, the enemy regrouped around their fallen fighter. Confusion spreading through their ranks. No one understood what had happened to their commander. Was there a hidden sniper in the mountains? Was there an unseen force on the ridge? The fighters hesitated for the first time. High above on the ridge, the SEALs remained tense, waiting for another shot, another sign that the mysterious protector was real and not some trick of chance. But the voice on the radio went silent, leaving only questions in the minds of the men. Each of them thought about home, thought about promises made, thought about the thin line between survival and death. Every sound of gravel shifting, every gust of wind made them flinch, made them wonder if it was the enemy coming closer or the ghostly sniper taking aim again. Fear mixed with courage as the night deepened. The SEALs knew the next few minutes would decide everything. Either they would fall here forgotten on a nameless ridge, or someone unseen would tip the balance and give them one last chance at life. The mystery of the phantom shot hung in the air like smoke refusing to clear, and the team braced themselves for whatever came next, knowing the story of that bullet was only beginning. The radio stayed silent after the strange voice left its calm warning. The SEAL team held their breath, waiting for another shot, waiting for another word, yet nothing came, only the sound of the wind moving across stone and the faint echo of enemy. Shouts far below. Whoever had taken that shot was gone, or maybe still there unseen, like a shadow that never showed its shape. The men whispered quietly, trying to understand what had happened, but no one had an answer. No one could explain why their enemy leader had fallen without a sound or a trace. Far away at base camp, a young woman sat inside a small wooden hut built at the highest point of the outpost. Her name was Elena Frey, born of Austrian-Swiss heritage, only 29 years old, yet already spoken of in whispers among soldiers who knew fragments of her past. She had long brown hair, often braided back in a practical style. Her frame small and slender, easy to underestimate, but her eyes deep and sharp, as if every gust of wind, every flicker of light was measured and stored inside her mind. Most people at the camp thought of her as nothing more than a tactical advisor, someone buried in papers and maps, someone who talked about the wind too much. Yet Elena was not ordinary. She had once served with Kroken Unit, an elite team that operated where others would never go, deep in hostile lands across broken deserts, frozen mountains, and jungles where no backup ever came. Kroken was more than a unit. It was a myth, a name passed in silence among special forces because the missions were never written down and the failures were never spoken of. One mission changed everything. The operation went wrong, men were lost, political fires spread, and Kroken was disbanded. Its name buried in locked files and forgotten corridors. Elena was moved out of the field and into a role that seemed like a promotion, but was truly a cage-keeping her away from combat, keeping her skill from causing more controversy in the base camp. She kept her silence while younger soldiers joked behind her back, calling her a ghost of old wars, a sniper who no longer fired her rifle. Private Johnson often laughed, saying she was some kind of wind reader who never saw combat, and Corporal Martinez compared her to a model with a gun. More decoration than soldier. Elena never argued, never explained. She let the words pass by, as if they were dust carried by the mountain wind. Instead, she spent her time inside the wind simulation facility, a place where computers hummed and her charts lined the walls, where red strings marked directions and small devices tracked pressure and density with impossible care. Her strange ritual puzzled everyone. She tied a thin red thread to the highest pole of the base camp, watching how it shifted with every gust of air. When asked why she trusted thread over modern equipment, she answered simply, electronic sensors measure what happened minutes ago, but the thread tells me what is happening right now. Many thought her methods old-fashioned, some even laughed, but she knew what they did not know, that air was alive and it carried secrets. Machines were too slow to catch. Every shift, every swirl, every whisper of the wind told her stories about the land, the bullets, the range, the survival of those fighting in the field. In her private space, she kept tools no one recognized, pressure sensors tuned to extremes, ballistic calculators with strange markings, hand-drawn charts full of patterns that meteorologists never mapped, wrapped carefully in cloth. She also kept a single piece of silver-gray fabric cut from an old ghillie suit, stitched by her own hands with words that read for those who never saw the bullet. To others, it was just a relic, but to her, it was memory and promise, a vow to those who fell when the shot came too late or never came at all. Every morning she touched the fabric, as if reminding herself that her duty was not forgotten, that her skill was not dead, even if official orders told her otherwise. That night, as she listened to the broken transmissions from SEAL Team 7, she felt the old fire rise inside her, the same fire that once guided her through the darkest operations. With Kroken, the team was trapped, surrounded with almost no ammunition. The standard plans offered no escape. Artillery could not reach, airstrikes were impossible, helicopters could not fly into the storm of bullets. Elena leaned close to her instruments, her eyes on the shifting graphs, the moving lines, the red thread outside her hut, swaying then going still. She saw what no one else could see, a rare, calm corridor forming in the air, a 5-minute window when the wind would fall silent across the ridge and a shot could fly straight without being torn apart by invisible forces. Her voice reached the team through static. Wind has shifted, clear shooting conditions now available. She did not explain more, she did not reveal who she was, she only gave them knowledge they could not understand, but knowledge that meant their survival still had a chance for the first time in years. She had acted not as an advisor, not as a quiet observer, but as a phantom sniper guiding from the shadows. And though her voice had faded from the RDI, the mark of her presence remained heavy in the air, around the trapped men, reminding them that somewhere out there someone still watched over them. SEALs tightened their grips on their rifles, holding on to the last of their courage and wondering about the unseen guardian who had just reached across the impossible distance to save them. They did not know her name. They did not know her past, but they would remember the sound of that calm voice as long as they lived, and Elena inside her hut stared at the red thread dancing in the breeze and whispered to herself that the time was coming when silence would no longer be enough, when she would be forced to act with more than words. Dark clouds rolled over the mountains like waves of black water, and the air grew heavy with the promise of danger. From above, the ridges looked like broken teeth, sharp and endless, stretching far across hostile land where every shadow could hide an enemy and every echo could be a warning. SEAL Team 7 moved through the night, their boots silent on the rocky ground, their breath slow and steady, their minds focused on the mission given to them. The name of the task was Operation Silent. Vulture's simple words on paper, but in truth it was a risk hidden inside the mountains like a trap waiting to snap shut. Orders were clear: infiltrate deep into enemy territory, plant surveillance devices near key routes, then retreat before dawn without being noticed. Intelligence reports said enemy presence was light scattered patrols, armed with simple weapons, no serious threat for a unit as trained as the SEALs. It was supposed to be routine, quick in, quick out, another line in a long list of missions. But war has no routine, and no mission ever stays simple once the first step is taken into hostile ground. As the team advanced through the narrow pass, the first sign of danger appeared: the faint crackle of static across their radios. Communications breaking down, even though no mountain should block the signal. Then came the second sign, a distant glimmer of light far ahead, torches moving in patterns too controlled, too deliberate to be random patrols. The leader raised his fist, stopping the squad, their instincts alert. Something was wrong. Intelligence had failed them. From the cliffs above came sudden bursts of gunfire, muzzle flashes cutting through the dark, the sound rolling like thunder down the valley walls. Bullets tore across the ridge. The SEALs dropped low, returning fire, but quickly realized they were surrounded not by scattered fighters, but by organized squads positioned with precision. Every exit they had marked on their maps was blocked choke points, already filled with enemy units waiting in ambush. It was not chance, it was preparation. The enemy had known they were coming. The jamming of their radios was deliberate. The positioning of troops was deliberate. The entire mission had been compromised. From the start, the team fought hard, their training keeping them alive in the first minutes of chaos, but ammunition drained faster than they could fire. Magazines running empty as enemies pushed closer with every second. The leader called for extraction, but the signal never reached command. The jamming swallowed their voices, leaving them trapped in silence. Artillery was impossible, the mountains too high to allow shells to fall accurately. Airstrikes would kill friend and foe together. Helicopters could not land under the hail of bullets that rained from every side. The SEALs realized they were cut off, alone, and slowly being pressed into a corner where no escape remained. At base camp, Elena listened to fragments of sound, broken words carried through static. A few seconds of gunfire, a shout of coordinates, then silence again. On her screens, satellite images blurred with interference, but clear enough to show small figures trapped in the valley. Enemy units closing in with methodical steps. She clenched her hands tight, her heart steady but heavy. She had seen this before: missions doomed by poor planning, soldiers abandoned by errors they never caused. The standard rules offered no path to save them, yet she could see something others could not. The wind patterns shifted across her maps, her sensors drew lines most would never notice, and outside her hut, the red thread began to move differently, slower, softer, then still. Elena leaned closer, her eyes narrowing as she read the language of the air. There would be a corridor soon, calm tunnel of silence in the storm of wind, 5 minutes where bullets could travel. Further straighter with almost no drift. It was rare, almost impossible, but it was there, a chance written not in orders. But in the invisible hand of the atmosphere she opened the secure channel, requesting activation of extended range. Support protocol, a hidden directive known only to those who once served with Kraken. If approved, it would allow her to provide precision fire support from base camp directly into the valley beyond standard range, beyond standard doctrine. The reply came back sharp and cold, denied you our advisory, only no sniper assets. Deployed, no exceptions authorized. Her jaw tightened, her eyes stayed on the red thread swaying once more outside her window. The bureaucracy had spoken, but bureaucracy could not bleed, it could not die on a ridge surrounded by enemies inside. Her hut. Alina rose from her chair, moving with quiet certainty. She crossed into the restricted section of the armory, where old weapons slept beneath dust and steel locks. There among forgotten crates lay her rifle, the DSR-1R, the same weapon she had carried in Kraken. Days, the same steel that had whispered through deserts and jungles. Records said it had been destroyed, yet here it was scarred, but alive, waiting for her touch. She lifted it gently as if it were an old friend long separated, and began the work of calibration. The scope needed tuning, the barrel needed cleaning, the sights demanded her patience. But her hands moved with the speed of memory, every action practiced 1,000 times before. Her charts lay spread before her, every line of wind, every note of air pressure, every detail she had recorded. In years of quiet exile, she was not guessing, she was not gambling. She was calculating with the care of someone who knew one mistake would cost not only her life, but the lives of those men trapped in the valley as the rifle took shape again in her hands. Alina knew what she had to do. She would not wait for permission. She would not allow red tape to bury those soldiers before dawn. The phantom shot that began as a mystery on the ridge was about to become something more, something legendary. Written not in reports, but in the hearts of men who survived when survival was impossible. The ridge shook with the sound of gunfire, and the seals pressed tighter against the stone. Their breaths short, their magazines nearly empty, their hope fading like the last light of the sun sinking behind the mountains. Every second the enemy moved closer, their shouts echoing through the valley, their boots crunching across the gravel, their bullets sparking against the rocks that shielded the trapped team. One wrong move, one careless moment, and the men would be overrun, their mission ended. Their names added to the long list of soldiers lost in silence, far from home, yet high above at base camp. Alina moved with calm that seemed almost unnatural, her hut dark, except for the glow of a single lamp, her hands steady as they slid across cold steel and glass. The DSR-1R rifle rested on the table, its barrel long and heavy, its body marked by scars of past battles, its scope polished clear by her careful touch. She had rebuilt it piece by piece in the quiet hours while others slept, adjusting the sights, oiling the joints, realigning the scope until it felt alive again, ready for the purpose it had been made for. The rifle had been part of her once, and now it was part of her again. Her maps lay open across the wooden floor, red lines crossing blue circles, notes written in fine script marking air pressure, density, and drift. Outside the window, the red thread tied to the pole swayed in slow rhythm, then hung still as if the mountain itself was holding its breath. The calm corridor had arrived, a rare and fleeting silence in the endless storm of wind, a narrow tunnel where a bullet could fly clean for miles. Alina's eyes narrowed, her mind tracing the invisible path across valleys and ridges, across air that few could understand. She carried the rifle up the rocky slope above the camp, each step measured, each breath steady, her boots pressing into dust, her figure blending into the night. At the highest point, she lay flat, her body merging with the stone, her cheek pressed against the rifle stock, her finger resting lightly against the trigger. Through the scope, the world became narrow, clear, and sharp. She saw the valley where the seals fought. She saw muzzle flashes like sparks in the dark. She saw the enemy leader moving at the front, shouting orders, driving his fighters forward with ruthless command. The enemy leader was large, armored his presence, enough to give courage to those around him. He carried himself with certainty, as if the mountain belonged to him, as if victory was already in his hands. He raised his weapon, pointing toward the seals, his voice loud, his men answering with fire. The last push about to begin. Elena adjusted her scope, tiny movements of her fingers, shifting the sight left and right, up and down, until the man's chest filled the circle of glass. She measured the distance, 3 kilometers. Across broken stone and twisting air, she measured the drift of the bullet, the density of the night air, the angle of the ridge. Numbers and patterns filled her mind, but she did not need a calculator. She had lived with the wind too long to require machines. Heart slowed, beating in rhythm with the still air, her breathing shallow, soft, like the red thread outside her hut. She whispered to herself, 1 shot, only 1 chance. Below, the SEALs prepared for the end, their rifles empty, their blades ready for close combat, their leader whispering a prayer as the enemy surged forward. Then the silence broke with a single sound. Sharp and clean, a whisper of steel leaving the barrel. Elena had pulled the trigger. Bullet flew across the valley, guided not by luck, but by skill, by knowledge, by years of practice, by the rare corridor of calm wind that she alone had seen it. Cut through the night, deflecting off a stone face, then curving across the ridge, traveling further than most believed possible, until it found its target. The enemy leader stumbled, his shout cut short, his chest marked by a sudden bloom of red, his body collapsing into the dust before his men's eyes. Confusion rippled through the enemy line, fear spreading like fire, their commander gone in an instant from a shot no one had seen. The SEALs looked at each other, their eyes wide, their breaths caught. None of them had fired, none of them even knew from where the shot had come, but they knew in that instant they had been saved. They used the moment, the enemy in shock, pulling back, uncertain their formation, breaking. The SEALs slipped from the ridge, moving toward the extraction path that now opened before them. Far away, Elena exhaled slowly, her finger easing away from the trigger, her body calm, her eyes steady. She lowered the rifle, wiped the barrel, and wrapped it once more in cloth. She left no words, no signals, only silence, her presence already fading like mist at sunrise. To the SEALs it was a miracle, to her it was duty, nothing more. The valley echoed with retreating footsteps, enemy fighters scattering without command. SEAL Team 7 moving fast through shadows, their lives bought by a bullet no one would ever admit existed. In base camp, records would show Elena never left her station, never touched a weapon, never broke a rule. Yet in the highest corner of the ridge, a single shell casing lay warm in the dirt, beside the mark of an elbow pressed into the stone. And the wind that moved across the mountain carried with it a secret known only to her. The phantom shot had been fired, and history had shifted because of it. The morning after the mission, the valley was quiet again, only smoke and broken echoes drifting across the mountains. But inside the minds of SEAL Team 7, the memory of that night burned like fire that would never fade. They had gone into the ridge believing it was a routine mission they had faced, certain death, trapped out of ammo, out of options, and yet they were alive, carried out by shadows and confusion, all because of a single bullet that had come from nowhere. The report they wrote back at base was filled with questions no one could answer. Fire support received from unknown source, sniper, unseen location, unknown coordination, impossible. Yet the shot had landed perfect and changed everything. Officers at headquarters frowned over the report, their pens scratching, their heads shaking. This was not supposed to happen. No sniper was deployed, no protocol allowed it. And yet the evidence could not be denied. 1 leader dead, 1 mission saved, 8 men alive when they should have been gone. An investigation began. Soldiers marched across the ridge, studying the ground, measuring the rocks, testing the soil for heat and residue, until finally they found what they did not expect. On the highest point of the ridge, there was disturbed dirt, shaped like the body of a shooter, a casing left behind, glinting faint in the morning light, and tied to a small branch nearby, a single red thread swaying in the whispers spread fast through the camp, whispers of a ghost sniper Whispers of someone who still carried Crokin inside them, even after the unit was buried. Whispers of Elena Frey. The young soldiers who had once laughed at her thread and her charts, now spoke in hushed voices when they passed her hut, eyes darting with new respect and silent fear. None of them dared ask if it had been her. None of them dared speak it out loud, but in their hearts they already knew the truth. Elena herself never admitted anything. She logged her hours in the advisory room, her notes neat and perfect, her eyes calm as if she had not moved an inch all night. When asked about the red thread, she only said it was useful for studying the wind. When asked about the broken lock on the armory, she only shrugged and returned to her papers. Yet inside her chest, the echo of that shot still lingered. Not pride, not regret, only the quiet knowledge that lives had been saved, and that was enough. Weeks later, a package arrived with no name, no address. Inside was a photograph, worn and folded, showing SEAL Team 7, gathered together, smiling, alive, holding each other with the relief of men who had seen death and walked away. On the back were words written in rough ink, still breathing because someone refused to let us fall. Thank you for the phantom shot. Alongside the photo was a small challenge coin, newly made on one side, crosshairs over jagged mountains on the other. The words, Phantom Support, always Overwatch. Elena placed the coin inside a wooden box where she kept letters and scraps from old missions, a silent collection of reminders that her work, though hidden, was never wasted. The box grew heavier with time as new notes arrived, scraps of paper with no signatures, messages like we made it out alive because of you, and no one else saw the bullet, but we know every letter was a thread binding her unseen to those who walked into danger. Every letter proof that invisibility could still leave a mark stronger than medals or ranks the military could not acknowledge. What had happened publicly, their files said no sniper acted, their leaders said no rules were broken, yet inside private halls changes began to take shape. New protocols allowed hidden specialists more freedom to act in emergencies. New systems gave advisors the chance to override orders if lives were on the line. None of the memos mentioned Elena's name, but those who read them understood where the change had begun, with one woman who tied a red thread to the wind and refused to let good men die. One evening, as the sun bled across the mountains, Master Sergeant David Chun, an old comrade from Crokin days, walked into her hut. He had heard the whispers, he had traced the ghost stories to her. I heard about your phantom shot, he said, his voice quiet, his eyes proud. The SEALs know someone out there still has Crokin skills, and they wanted me to tell you that you are remembered and respected. Elena only nodded, her hands resting on her charts, her eyes drifting back to the red thread, dancing softly in the breeze. She did not need fame, she did not need medals. Her place was here, watching the wind, listening to silence, waiting for the moment when no one else could help, because she knew it would come again. A team cut off an enemy, closing in radios, silent hearts breaking, a single shot needed to turn despair into survival. And when that moment arrived, she would be ready, the phantom once more, unseen, unheard, but always watching. For some heroes fight in the open while others guard in silence, and though no spotlight will shine on them, their work saves lives all the same. And in the quiet of the mountain with the red thread